Dear viewers, welcome to the weekly Roundup. Thanks for joining. I'm making an episode every week, so if you enjoy this, subscribe. Let's dive in. Starting with reveals and announcements. Of course, we had little unknown games that dropped reveals or gameplay, like The Witcher 4 or Hogwarts Legacy, but you already know about that. The whole internet is talking about it. So let's get into the real deal here, the super cute indie games you are here for. And just so you know, this week somehow is massive. I went all out soul searching for titles as I was and am in quarantine because I have corona. Bad news for me, good news for you. Get your Steam wishlist ready, pull out your wallets and let's get started. One of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time, made by famous Dutch director Paul Verhoeven no less. Our pride and glory in the movie industry, it is Starship Troopers. And the game related to this movie, Terran Command, is going to be an RTS game in the Starship Troopers universe. Erect a base, train troopers, kill bugs, what more do you really want? This RTS was supposed to release March 31st, next week, but it will now be delayed until June 16th, 2022. I hate to say it, but I think bugs are the problem. There is this innovative indie game called Timemelters. I once did a video about it to help them with their Kickstarter on the main channel, giving it some exposure. I enjoyed this title a lot in its early stages of development, and the Kickstarter was successful too, and after that the devs were rather silent for a while. Until now, because the beta is almost finished. Auto Exec Studios from Canada finished the entire single and multiplayer campaign. They're working on the endgame scene, adding challenge mode maps to the game, they're polishing effects, sound, animations, and they're trying to squash all the bugs that keep creeping up. They're working towards this beta build, which will consist of all 5 acts and most of the challenge mode maps in single player. They don't really specify when we can get our hands on this beta, and once they do, I will inform you, but if you enjoy 3D action puzzle games with some cool spells, unique time travel mechanics and fun gameplay, wishlist this game on Steam. It's going to be really good, I feel. There's a new indie game in town, or at least they're trying to, with a Kickstarter. I am talking about Whalefall, a cute indie game developed and published by Whitethorn Games, who previously published titles like Lake. Whalefall is situated in a world where crab people, tomato people and flying whales are pretty normal, all things considered. And all is fine until the humans, who else, shoot down a flying whale during an armed conflict, and this whalefall has devastating effects. You play the protagonist, you party up and do combat in JRPG style, but also in a more strategic style like you would find in Fire Emblem, and there is even a duel from time to time, making use of rock, paper, scissors mechanics. The game plays like a visual novel, it is fully voice acted, it has a bunch of romancing options, and the only downside is that you can't romance the tomato people. I think that's the main reason the Kickstarter so far isn't doing all that peachy, because of the tomato people. You guys think I'm joking about the tomato people, but I'm really not. If you like what you see, maybe check out the Kickstarter or wishlist the game. I'll put the link of the Kickstarter in the description. Hard West 2 dropped a reveal trailer. This is the sequel to the tactical western game Hard West, a game yours truly actually played back in the day, a game also still available on Game Pass. That was a really cool game, quite difficult, it had great graphics and cool progression systems, various weapons, interesting enemies and an overall aesthetic you simply don't see very often. For all intents and purposes, Hard West sees more of the same, and it is described as a supernatural journey to the dark heart of the West. With a gun full of lead and a fist full of witchcraft, raise an outlaw posse and chase down the devil to take back what is yours. Sounds good to me, count me in. Chinatown Detective Agency dropped a release trailer. All of these drops were enabled by a Microsoft Xbox event, by the way. Chinatown Detective Agency is a point-and-click adventure game set in a cyber-noir version of Singapore in 2032. The developers that make this game, they are based in Singapore as well, so that's cool, using some source material, I'm sure. The game was successfully kickstarted in April 2020. There is a demo available, there's an extended prologue available, and now the final game will be available on April 7th. on Steam and on Game Pass. Clearly, you are a detective solving crime in this futuristic Singapore setting, but you also work with people wanting to operate in the shadows, keeping their affairs under wraps. Quite a unique selling point for this point-and-click adventure. More clicking brought me to another reveal, this time Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn. What a magnificent trailer. The setting, effortlessly blending magic, a flintlock pistol and a dragon cat pet thing into this post-apocalyptic environment at the rise of dawn. I mean, this is good stuff. The soundtrack as well, so atmospheric and on point, it's truly marvelous.
Golden crown, we bathe in the blood of that rising sun and breathe in the power of the smoking gun.
Here's the description of what is going on. The door to the afterlife has been opened, allowing the old god's army of the undead to escape from within. The living are on the brink of extinction. It is time for the Coalition army to retake their world, embrace vengeance, gunpowder and magic, and embark on an epic journey to lead mankind's final siege against the tide of the dead. This is an action RPG open-world adventure from the creators of Ashen, a cute Souls-like indie game back in the day that was received really well. I can't wait to get my hands on this one at some point in time, and I think you can still play Ashen on Game Pass too. Fun fact of the week, the Flintlock pistol and Flintlock musket referred to the mechanic used to fire these firearms, the Flintlock mechanic. Already developed in the 16th century, the mechanic remained popular until the late 19th century, so almost 300 years. The mechanic works as follows. You load the barrel of a pistol with some gunpowder and then you put in the lead bullet. The Flintlock mechanic uses a piece of flint to cause sparks, which in turn lights up the gunpowder, which causes a lot of pressure in a closed barrel, propelling the bullet out of the barrel towards the enemy, ideally. This is still how pistols typically work. These days, however, the mechanics of causing a small explosion in a closed barrel to propel the bullet is very different because it happens in the bullet casing itself, but the concept remains the same. In the trailer of the game, you can clearly see the Flintlock mechanic in action. The sparks it causes aren't even exaggerated here for a cinematic effect or something. Back in the day, one of the reasons everybody fired their guns at the same time during a battle was that the sparks from the Flintlock mechanic would otherwise ignite the gun of your neighbor, while he wasn't maybe pointing at the enemy, or worse, when he was reloading. Anyone ever seeing Flint in action can see how this could be a problem, because there are so many sparks coming from this tiny stone. They didn't have any other mechanics though at the time. Also, the bullet used in the trailer is accurate historically. A round lead bullet pushed manually into the barrel. I admire this amount of detail in games. It makes me more excited about the title too, because you can clearly see the devs are putting like a lot of effort into this. From slaying undead, it is a small step to Immortality, coincidentally the next game on the list today. Immortality is an upcoming narrative video game developed by Sam Barlow, and if you don't know Sam Barlow, I don't blame you. He made two earlier titles, however, Her Story and Telling Lies. In these games, Barlow uses full motion, pre-recorded footage from real actors to let you explore these games. I played Her Story. It is a very captivating and unique experience. It's more of a journey through someone's mind rather than a game. Immortality seems to follow a similar path. The game is based on the fictional actress Marissa Marcel, who had a start in 3 movies but which were never released. Marcel has since gone missing, creating a mystery for the player to solve. Next to detective work, there is some horror involved as well. Just like in our next title, Signalis. They dropped a gameplay trailer and I'm watching this and I have no idea what I'm looking at, honestly. I kind of like that. Here is a description. Signalis is a classic survival horror experience with a unique aesthetic, full of melancholic mystery. Investigate a dark secret, solve puzzles, fight off nightmarish creatures and navigate dystopian, surreal, retro-tech worlds as Elster, a technician replica searching for her lost dreams. releases this year. More pixel art dystopian stuff with Moonscars, a side-scroller 2D indie game about you, a failed god, punishing whoever is in your way. I'm getting blasphemy vibes here. I absolutely love the combat, the animations, and the soundtrack of this title. This gritty slasher with metal music is supposed to release this summer. Proceeding with the Patch Plaza, bringing an overview of patch news. Killsquad released an update and it's quite a nice one. First up, Killsquad is getting 10 never-seen-before skill upgrades. From now on, each hero will have 2 upgrades available. One of them with a cost of 1 tech and the second of 2 techs, which you can farm in Spec Ops contracts. Expect 4 new gear perks in the Elemental Colosseum, and those are some really cool abilities they got right there. Feel free to pause to take a look at the screenshot, especially the drone following you around casting random gadgets. That should be a lot of fun, I feel. Furthermore, all heroes now have access to the invulnerable dodge, which is pretty much what you think it is, and last but not least, 12 new cosmetics to unlock. It's honestly great to see that the game is still getting content updates. It's a great game, big recommendation from my part. Liberté, the early access mix of deck builder and top-down ARPG, released patch 0.6.1. It is a very small patch. The devs improved the Bliss Curse system, adding new cards for your melee decks and new areas for the medical supplies mission. Talking about small patches, Wolcen released a small patch that allowed them to release small patches. This is like the announcement for the announcement, a concept unfamiliar to Wolcen, by the way, but then it is the patch for the patch. Very curious. Unless you have followed Wolcen like me and kept it installed, because that was the main and only realistic way you know that an update was released, because your Steam updates the game and then you know there's something new, because the devs don't communicate about anything. And the last couple of patches, even small hotfixes, were really not that small. They were like 8 GB, 14 GB, just for a patch with a few lines of patch notes. Now, I have really good internet, so for me that is fine, but others were complaining about this, and rightly so. If you have a data cap, this is some seriously unfunny business. It should be solved now. Some modding news, honestly some of my favorite news, I just love mods. Gedonia implemented part 2 of their modding tools for this cute indie early access game. You can now add custom quests in modding, and the solo dev has made a whole tutorial on how to do it. Furthermore, the patch brought some quality of life features like the option to cast spells directly from your spellbook instead of dragging them to your hotbar, increased elemental buff timers, and some other minor things. More modding news, Legends of Ellaria added modding support too. If there's a game that needs this, it is this one, because this game requires a lot of work to make it even remotely playable. In my humble opinion, of course. But after playing this for a few hours, I kinda know what I'm talking about. And the Steam rating of 62% kind of agrees with me as well. And this unique blend of sandbox action RPG and real-time strategy, as the dev says so, simply doesn't work. I mean, even the trailer doesn't reach 60 FPS. And the game is littered with bugs. This should have been an early access game, but somehow is now fully released. And I'm really hoping the mods can salvage this title. The indie deck builder Rise of Humanity, made by Belgian studio Cybernetic Walrus, announced their big patch for this early access game. It's releasing March 31st. The Belgians brought us a very tactical game with several characters, some RPG elements, a story about a robotic invasion, and some serious card hunting on the side. A team of playable characters gets an addition in the form of Danny, the illusionist. There's a new enemy type, which is honestly kind of hard to distinguish from the existing enemy types, but here it is, the Marv, a rocket launching robot, because why not? We're launching rockets at them, it's only fair they can return the favor. And finally, the patch brings a new environment, the warehouse, and of course more daily challenge missions, which is currently the bread and butter of this game, because the campaign is still rather short. It's still early access after all. Rise of Humanity is a niche game, but I played it quite a bit. I think it's very enjoyable and you could check it out if you want or wishlist it. Then, releases. Looking back, quickly at what released last week. A Memoir Blue, the interactive poetry indie game about the bond between a mom and her daughter, costs only €6 and so far it has a 90% Steam rating. Very few reviews though, only 11. And Norco, the pixel art point-and-click indie game about the Louisiana suburbs, released for €12 and has the exact same rating, 90%, with the exact same number of reviews, only 11. Itora, the 2.5D action platformer, is €17 with 79% user score out of 43 reviews. This game is doing a little better then in terms of sales. Let's look ahead at what is releasing this week. Ghostwire Tokyo, a paranormal game set in, Tokyo. Because Tokyo's population has vanished and deadly supernatural forces prowl the streets. Use an arsenal of elemental abilities to unravel the truth behind the disappearance and save Tokyo. Plenty of reviews already out on this one. I watched ACG telling me to wait for a deep sale. Across the board, this gets very middling reviews with people praising the art style and looks and overall gameplay, but dreading the fact the game doesn't manage to excel at anything. It's not bad, it's not good, but it is €60, which is a lot of money. That deep sale, plus some patches maybe, sounds like a decent offer. Release is March 25th. Then we stay in Japan for Ikai. Fear and anxiety prevail after the darkest tales from Japanese folklore come to life in this first-person psychological horror game. Set in a feudal era, Ikai revolves around the priestess of a shrine, struggling to defeat the spirits of her past and her present. Every mechanic of the game is meant to raise this relatable feeling of helplessness and create a tense atmosphere. I really hope that is not too relatable for you, because that doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. The slow, precise and natural movements as a way of interaction resemble real lives to foster immersion in the uncanny world of Ikai. It's intriguing, for sure, not gonna lie, so if you're into this, there you go. Wigmund, a game currently in early access, leaves early access on March 28th. Wigmund is an open-world, single-player, isometric fantasy RPG with a unique gameplay that tests the dexterity of the gamer. The mouse becomes an extension of the hero's weapon. A player takes on the role of a knight who fights the evil pseudo-king Antiochus. I played this for quite a few hours and I'm really not sold on this whole unique combat thing, but that might just be me. Steam user rating is 68%, which is okay, and I kind of agree with that rating. The game is fun enough, it is not expensive at €12, and you can have some good times with it. Just don't expect a very polished product, because it is only made by 2 developers. Weird West, developed by Wolfeye Studios, is a game I've had my eye on for quite a while, and it releases March 31st. Survive and unveil the mysteries of the Weird West through the intertwined destinies of its unusual heroes in an immersive sim from the co-creators of Dishonored and Prey. Pretty much all signs are on green for this one, a fair price of $40. It is published by Devolver, which only publishes great games. It is made by seasoned devs and this whole thing just looks super cool. We're almost at the end, time for some personal updates. What have I been up to? Well, I have corona, so I haven't been up to much. I'm in quarantine and just working, and I'm making some videos, and that's it. I can't go outside at the moment, but it's okay. Feeling already much better than last week, hopefully I'm better soon. Just a few hours ago, the Future Game Show was aired. That was at midnight though, for me at least, and now it is 6 in the morning with me finalizing the script, so I'm not going to incorporate any games from that show. I will watch it later today, and if it is interesting enough, I will make a summary video out of it, with background stories I can dig up. It could be interesting, and then I'll release it on this channel. I'm also just playing Last Epoch a lot, the new patch. I am not impressed at all, to be honest. I do know more hotfixes are going to be released though, so I'll hold on passing judgment until we have all the content and just create build guides until then, and maybe some opinion videos about the game itself. And that's all on the main channel. And that's it. If you have any questions or remarks, put them in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did and you want more like this, consider liking the video or even subscribing. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. Love you all. See you soon. Bye bye.